let's be quite clear. The ABC has acknowledged it was an error of judgment to have Zaki Mallah in that live audience. It clearly was. This is somebody who had pleaded guilty to threatening to kill ASIO officers. He'd been charged with terrorist offences, acquitted, but he had bought a gun. He'd bought 100 rounds of ammunition. He'd done a number of other things which appeared to be preparatory for a terrorist incident. His social media presence was disgusting. I mean, this is a guy who had, on social media, said that 2 prominent female journalists should be publicly raped. I mean, why in heaven's name? What is the judgment? What is the mentality that says that that is the sort of person you would put in a live audience on one of the most prestigious current affairs programs on the national broadcaster? Now, that's why people are upset. I've got to go before the Expenditure Review Committee and argue for the ABC to be given well over $1 billion every year of government money. I've got to stand up in Parliament and take questions about the ABC. I don't run the ABC, but I am in a portfolio sense responsible for it. How could I do that job and not be able to answer the question, how on earth did this happen? Am I meant to say, oh, it doesn't matter, the ABC can include anyone they like in a live audience, and the one thing we can't do is ever comment on it?
Yeah, but you see, it gets a bit complicated, though, because
I think it's very uncomplicated.
Well, you're making a judgment about...
I think you're trying to complicate it, because what you're doing, Barry, you and I know very well this was a shocking error of judgment, and what you're trying to do is muddy the waters and try to turn this into an issue about free speech. Let me tell you, the ABC...
No, it's not an issue of free speech.
The producers of Q&A...
That's not the point I'm making.
The producers of Q&A undermined a legitimate debate. Now, let me put this to you. In any discussion of national security laws, of citizenship laws, of counter-terrorism, counterinsurgency in the field in Afghanistan, there is always a big debate. There's libraries full of the debate about is the measure counterproductive? Is it going to create more problems than it solves? That's a legitimate point to raise. So why would the producers choose the least reputable, the most discredited, arguably one of the most dangerous individuals to put that view? And the answer, I suspect, is because in a sort of undergraduate playing at tabloid journalism style, they wanted to create the biggest shock and awe and sensation instead of running the program like a responsible current affairs program on the national broadcaster that frankly should do better. I mean, one thing that is perfectly obvious is that the security protocols surrounding the assembling of the Q&A audience have got to be improved.
That's a bit exaggerated too, isn't it? How many hundreds of shopping centres has this guy walked into and exposed himself to thousands of people in that way? How has that been a threat? What is the difference between going into a shopping centre...
Are you pulling my leg?
Well, what is the difference between going into a shopping centre...
After the Martin Place siege, you're saying to me that there is no security issue with putting Zaki Mallah in a live audience...
Well, what's the difference between that and Zaki Mallah walking into a shopping centre?
Well, if you can't see that, Barry,
well, I just want to explain the difference.
Seriously, you've lost the plot there, with all due respect. This is a high-profile audience. It's a very high-profile target. This is a fellow that has threatened violence in the past, has been threatened to kill people, gone to jail for it, been involved in buying ammunition,
why is he walking the
buying
streets?
A gun.
Why is he walking the streets if that's the case?
Well, because he served his term of imprisonment and he hasn't committed another offence. But that doesn't mean that you would then consciously and willingly put that person in a very high-profile environment on a live television program. I mean, if you think there's no physical security issues with Zaki Mallah in that audience at the ABC. No, that's exactly what you are saying. And I've just got to say to you, I'm really glad you're not in charge of the physical security of the ABC, Barry, because the idea that this is a non-issue, I'm stunned that you would be so blasé about it. You know, when Mallah was sentenced, the Supreme Court judge criticised the media for giving this guy a platform and for, in effect, feeding his sense of self-importance, and suggested that the media had, to some extent, contributed to the problem. Now, in the light of all of that, you get back to that fundamental question, why on earth with the ABC, who, you know, Barry, I support the ABC, but I've got to tell you, the ABC is different to any other media organisation. It has a statutory responsibility to be accurate and impartial and objective.
And it's also independent.
It is independent of government, but it has a higher duty. It has a duty of objectivity that the rest of the media does not. They can be as opinionated as they like. And so, you know, the ABC gets over $1 billion a year from the taxpayer, and it's got a very heavy obligation to deliver that accurate and impartial coverage, and do it with the dignity and responsibility that befits our national broadcaster.